Let's go over LeetCode question 1374, generate a string with characters that have odd counts. Now the question says that we're going to be given an integer n and return a string with n characters such that each character in such string occurs an odd number of times. Now we are gonna be given a number and we have to create a string with the same length. Well, the characters have to occur odd number of times. The return string must contain only lowercase English letters, so only lowercase. If there are multiple valid strings, return any of them. Okay, so if you were to look at our example has an input of 4, right? So that means that our string is going to have a length of 4. And we have to create an output with string length of 4. But you have to notice that all the characters, they're all odds. So here we have only one of Z. Here we have 3 P's. And this output is just another example. So we can have something like A, and B, which will work. We can have something like B, and A. So the result is going to really depend on how you code your solution. Now they're just giving us one of the examples, but note that there are many other valid strings such as this one and this one, and there's a lot more. There's actually infinite number of combinations that you can make. Now if our input is 2, which is also even, so this was even, we have our result x and y occurs once and x also occurs once. Now if it was the case that our input was 7, we can actually just repeat only one character. So we can have A. So A repeated 7 times. Given that, try to code your solution, but just know that whatever the input is, we want to have odd number of unique characters. So A can be once, it can be repeated 3 times, it can be repeated 5 times, any number of odd times. If you guys find this helpful, make sure you guys like and subscribe. Thanks. Now let's go over our first result, and our time and space complexity is going to be O of n. Our time is O of n because we are going to repeat a certain operation n number of times, and our space is going to be O of n because we are going to have that same length of stringed array or string as our result. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable named alphabet, and this is going to keep all the alphabets from A to Z. So I have all my alphabet from A to Z. Now, I just need to actually handle 2 cases for my solution. So first one is if number is odd. If number divided by or mod 2 does not equal to 0, that means that number is odd. What I want to do is I want to just repeat a random character from this string array n number of times. So that's going to be math.floor, and it's going to be math.random, multiply that by 26, and then I repeat that n number of times. And I actually have to put alphabet here because we want it from that string. And as you can see, we handled our first solution where the input is odd number. So if it's an odd number, we can just return one character that's going to be repeated n number of times. So what I did was from the alphabet string, I just got a random index and repeated n number of times. And if you were to evaluate this, the maximum number would be 25, so index of 25, and lowest would obviously be 0. So 0 from 25, I'm going to get a random index and just get a random alphabet from the string and repeat that n number of times. So now I was able to handle my odd cases, but now I need to handle my even case. So for my even case, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change my index to 25 so that I can reserve this last alphabet, which is Z, and add on to that later. So at first, I'm going to get a random alphabet that's going to be repeated n minus 1 times because any even number minus 1 is obviously going to turn odd, right? So we're going to have a random number of odd elements, and then we're going to add Z to that so that we can get 2 unique alphabets. So that's going to be else return. So alphabet dot at index math.floor. So same as before, math.random, and we are going to multiply this by 25 because we want to get any alphabet between A and Y, I'm going to repeat this n minus 1 times. And as you can see, we have X repeated 3 times, V repeated obviously 1 times because remember n minus 1, so 4 minus 1 is going to evaluate to 3, which is always going to be odd. And we get 3 X's, and we do n minus 1 here, which is going to evaluate to 1, and we repeat V 1 times. Now we have to be able to add the last one unique character, and that's going to be the alphabet Z. So that's going to be alphabet at index 25. You can see we have our result. So this is our result where we were getting random alphabets of the same size as our given input, which is n, or our number, and we just repeated that n number of times. When it's the case that it's even, we did n minus 1 repeats of a random element, excluding the last alphabet, which is Z, and then we just later added that alphabet to the end. Now, we actually don't need this alphabet string, and we don't really need to get a random one every time. We can just replace this with, I don't know, something like A, and replace this with an A also, and then just add on B later. But let's save that for our next solution. Now let's go over our second solution. If you remember from our first solution, you should remember that we had a string with alphabets, and we actually don't need that. We can actually just start coding right now and just keep the last 2 lines. So we check at first if n is odd. What we are going to do is we are just simply going to return character A, alphabet A, repeated n times. So this actually looks so much more simpler, right? We didn't have to create a string for our alphabets, and we didn't have to get a random number that points to a random index and get a random alphabet. So this is actually more simpler. Now we need our other case. So else we're going to return, we're going to do A repeat, so same as before, n minus 1, and we can just simply add B like this. So we have our result. So this is 2 line, really simple. You can actually just get rid of our if statements and just use ternary operator, but let's just leave it like this. So what we did was, instead of again having an alphabet string, we just designated A to repeat it n number of times if our n is odd, and if it's the other case when our n is even, we're going to repeat A n minus 1 times, which is going to evaluate to a odd number, and we just stick B to the end. Now that's it for our solution. Now let's code another solution for this question, and this one is going to look a little different, but logic is overall going to be the same. So instead of creating strings at first, we are going to create a array. So same as before, if n mod 2 does not equal 0, so if our n is odd, what we're going to do is return, we'll create an array. So using array.from, give a length of n, and we are actually going to fill this up with the alphabet A. And you can see that we have 7 A's in our array, and now we just have to merge this. So how can we merge this? We can use the join method and just pass in an empty string, and we get our result. We need our other case when it's even, and let's use a different method to create our array. I want to use spread operator array, pass in our length, which is going to be n minus 1, and we are going to fill this up with, same as before, A's, and we should definitely return this. And as you can see, we have our array with A's only, but it's n minus 1 number of A's. Now what we have to do is we want to create this into a string, and then here we just add B to it at the end. This is it for our solution. I just wanted to show you a different way to create arrays. So method 1 and method 2. Although this is a lot slower, I thought it was interesting to see different solutions. If you guys find this helpful, make sure you guys like and subscribe. Thanks.